in a while, the media explains exactly who they are. It doesn't happen very often, just every once in a while. From very high above, all the insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media, this is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good afternoon, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday. Right out of the gate, I need to apologize for the tardiness of today's episode. I had to attend a Quilts of Valor ceremony for my father-in-law, the Master Chief. To make it on time, I had to cut this morning's live program short and publish this one a little bit later, so my apologies. Not very often does the media slip and come right out of the gate and explain who they really are. Oh, I mean, you could tell by reading the articles and listening to the drivel that they mistakenly label a podcast and pretty much figure it out. None of this is rocket surgery, but every once in a while they blurt it out, and then they're flabbergasted, there's a good word, when we stare back at them with a look of disbelief, shocked at what we heard just come out of their mouths. You see, progressive liberals and redcoats believe so strongly in a command and control economy that it's impossible for them to understand what would actually happen if you removed government out of the equation. The very suggestion that an economy would flourish without government is incomprehensible to them. Even when you present them with indisputable facts, they are still incapable of understanding. And here in Wyoming, it's actually a little bit worse than that. They'll all still claim that all of them are Republicans. Now that right there is another issue entirely, and perhaps we'll get to that later on in the program. But before I get too far down the road, let me play for you exactly what I'm referring to. Claire McFarland on the Cow Pies Morning Show this morning. They were talking to gubernatorial candidate Brent Bean. Now just listen to this question from Claire McFarland. It'll explain everything.
I mean, the $40 billion, so that's inviolate, as we know.
Stop. I knew that I couldn't get through this entire soundbite without pausing right here. No, the 30 or 40 billion that she's referring to is not inviolate. Now, 12 to 13 billion of it is in the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. Now, that part can't be touched without a constitutional amendment. The rest of it is in various coffee cans around the state. Trust funds, various checking accounts. There's a whole laundry list of creative words they use to describe their little hidey holes. Let me just give you one example. Years ago, the legislature set up a trust fund to amass money to build a new prison. Then, a few years later, they didn't build the prison, and yet they used the money for other purposes. Now, that's happened several different times with that particular trust fund. So, a lot of these little coffee cans, yes, they're allocated, but it's not like the legislature can't just pass another bill and use that money elsewhere. And they often do. Sit through any legislative session and you'll hear them discuss it. All right, so let's get to what I actually wanted you to hear. Here's that question from Claire McFarland.
But also when they were giving the Craig report, when the money crunchers, the number crunchers were giving the Craig report in October, they said, yeah, this is watermark investment earnings this year, but we don't know what's going to happen next year. I guess how do you diversify, if I can use an ugly word, diversify our economy without interjecting government?
But Brent, how do you do what you're suggesting without government? That's pretty easy. Get government out of the way. Don't let government get involved. Stop giving out all the subsidies. Stop giving industry sweetheart deals and exempting them from taxes. Let businesses compete on an even playing field. These government cheerleaders, otherwise known as the media, have never known anything different. The very suggestion that we could remove government out of the equation is entirely foreign to them, because they've never really known anything different than the Wyoming command and control economy. What do I mean by that? In the purest sense of the phrase, a command and control economy is an economic system where a central government or central planners control all major decisions regarding the production, pricing, and distribution of goods and services. Oh, I can hear it right now. Now, David, that's not what we do here in Wyoming. We have a free market economy. Unless you talk to Josh Durrell of the Wyoming Business Council, in which case he'll tell you that the free market does not exist. Actually, my favorite Josh Durrell soundbite is the one where he says the free market is working against us. Here it is.
But you have to remember, those markets are working.
Okay,
the market is working against us. So we have to use government intervention to actually reverse that. I know all of you.
Yeah, that's the guy who is in charge of the agency which many Redcoats refer to as, quote, the economic engine of Wyoming, end quote. Which, by the way, that's a load of bull crap. The economic engine of Wyoming is small businesses. So anyway, Josh Durrell says that we have to use government to work against the free market to propel economic development in the state. And while we're on the subject, here's another classic from Josh Durrell.
It's not about having a super small government. It's having an appropriately sized government that's important. And for the problem that we're looking to solve, we're not appropriately sized. We are, indeed, too small.
Using his logic, bigger government means bigger economy. That there is a direct relationship, when the truth is, it's actually an inverse relationship. And I'll explain what I mean in just a second. But first, an absolutely outrageous profit timeout. The following ad was paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
This is Brent Bean, a Republican for governor. Wyoming families know what matters: law enforcement, emergency services, and supporting strong schools, agriculture, and energy production. But state government keeps growing while priorities fight for resources. That has to change. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending and priority problem. Vote for me on August 18th, and I'll put Wyoming priorities first. I'll return taxes to you, the taxpayer, and make Wyoming number one. Paid for by Brent Bean for governor.
Today's program is also brought to you by Morton Buildings. If you're in the market for any type of building for your property, you need to call Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the best in metal building construction, and they've been doing it longer than anybody else around. So it doesn't matter if it's a garage or a barn or maybe something bigger, like a roping arena or maybe a giant warehouse for your business. The two guys you need to call first are Marcos and Jesse. Again, their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out on their website, mortonbuildings.com. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election.
Siberia,
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada.
Straight to hell. Iceland.
France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the last year and a half been more than you could bear? Well, if it has, you've come to the right place. Call my friend Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519. And now, back to the program. When government grows, business contracts. Here's why. The bigger the government, more taxes, more regulations. Every politician has their own brilliant idea of how to make things better, and it almost always results in more regulation and more things that businesses have to comply with. Accompanying that is the government's next fix for the problem that they created. Let me explain. When the legislature passes a bill, ostensibly to help businesses, that's what they always say that it's going to do, they have to hire somebody to administer their new program. And it doesn't really matter what it is. Well, that person then administers the new program by passing rules and regulations that businesses have to comply with so that they can take advantage of said new program. They always use this phrase, the agency shall promulgate rules. And so a whole bunch of unelected bureaucrats are assigned to this brand new agency, and they come up with new and inventive ways to duplicate the exact same thing that the free market could do for itself. But let's not forget the cow pies question.
I guess how do you diversify, if I can use an ugly word, diversify our economy without interjecting government?
How indeed. So again, her question is, however do you do this without government? But that's based upon the premise that you actually have to have government involved in the economy. They never consider the possibility that perhaps, just maybe, the impediment to economic growth is government. If you're one of these government cheerleading types, you believe that the harder you squeeze the orange, the more juice you get out of it. But eventually, there's nothing left to drip into the bowl. Their theory, then, is once they've depleted the resources of one business, now, of course, they don't look at it that way. They just say, well, gee, I don't know why that business failed. But their theory is to go find another business to replace the economic output of the business that they already strangled, not realizing that it was the government policies themselves that created the economic stagnation in the first place. And so their solution is to go find another business and lure them into the state. And the way that they do that is through subsidies and other tax benefits. It is impossible to grow government so big that it creates prosperity. There's only one way to do that, and that is to release the economy from the stranglehold of government.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. It is time to reawaken this industrial giant, to get government back within its means, and to lighten our punitive tax burden. And these will be our first priorities, and on these principles there will be no compromise.
That is precisely the opposite of this line of thinking.
I guess how do you diversify, if I can use an ugly word, diversify our economy without interjecting government?
The fundamental reason why the media, liberal redcoats, and the Democrats, who are basically all of the same thing, just with a different title, misunderstand conservatives is they think conservatives only want a smaller, less intrusive government when it comes to the economy, when in reality, conservatives don't believe the government has any place in the economy at all. In order for them to understand conservatives, they would have to reject, out of whole cloth, their foundational premise that government is necessary for the economy to grow. But when you are psychologically hardwired to believe that government is necessary in all situations, it is impossible for you to consider any other possibility. The left's entire philosophy is based on an economic contradiction, that being that government creates economic prosperity. Let's just put their theory to the test for just 1 minute. In Wyoming, government is the number one industry. It's bigger than tourism. It's bigger than our extractive industries. It's bigger than every other sector of the economy. And before I get too far down this road, every number that I'm about to tell you is publicly available. It's either from the Department of Audit, Department of Revenue, Workforce Services, Department of Tourism, Education, U.S. Census. You can find all of these numbers. And if you go to Wyoming by the Numbers on Facebook, you can find all of these documents that I'm referring to. They were all put together by my friend B. Alfred Marshall. He's a brilliant numbers guy. But anyway, remember their premise that government is necessary to create economic growth. And we obviously agree with that in Wyoming. Well, not all of us. The conservatives definitely don't. But all the media and government cheerleader types absolutely do. So as I mentioned, government is the number one industry in Wyoming. It also happens to be the number one employer in the state. 23% of the entire workforce in Wyoming works for government in one way or another. The federal government, state government, cities, counties, schools. 23% of the entire workforce is getting a paycheck from taxpayers. According to their theory, the largesse of government should be creating a booming economy. Well, the truth is there is one sector of the economy that's booming, and it's only government. Wyoming has the slowest growth rate of any other state. From 2018 to the end of 2025, the growth rate for Wyoming was 0.7% per year. The growth rate across the entire country is 2.4%. 2.4 versus 0.7. Real inflation in this state is 8% above the rest of the country. Here's the part that will tell you exactly who the real culprit in this whole economic morass is. Residential property taxes in Wyoming have risen 73% from 2019 to 2024. From 2019 to 2025, there has been a 52% increase in state and local revenue. It's gone from $11.9 billion in 2019 to $18.1 billion in 2025. Now here's the set of numbers that really fry me. The expenditures. In 2019, state and local governments spent $10.7 billion. In 2025, they spent $15.8. Now wait a minute. Wait just 1 minute. They took in $18.1 billion last year, but they only spent $15.8. So state and local governments took $3 billion out of the economy over and above what they needed for the necessary functions of government. And that's even the huge government that we have right now. Is there any question whatsoever why our economy is only growing at 0.7%? I'll give you 3 guesses, but you're only going to need one. Because government is the number one industry in Wyoming, and it's fleecing everybody else. When your economic philosophy is this,
I believe it's our job to give opportunities to those people that want to stay in Wyoming, but don't see a future. Now, I don't believe it's our job to give them that. Let me restate that. I believe it's our job to develop a system, an economic system, that will allow for those people to reach their potential here.
what about the economic system we already have? Free market capitalism. Most of us believe in it and wish that we could get back to it. But the problem is that the government cheerleaders, the Redcoats, and the Democrats, who, again, are all the same people, do not. Well, that'll about do it for today's installment of the broadcast. Thank you for being patient and giving me the time to go to the Master Chief's ceremony. I really appreciate it. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk again on Saturday during Weekend Update. But for now, from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio, I'm David Iverson, and this is the one and only Cowboy State Politics.